One of the best moments of the debate, one of the few moments where there could have been some fire, although Hillary did her best to tamp it down, was the question from a man who'd been wrongfully imprisoned by almost 4 decades for a crime that he did not commit. And Hillary's attempt to sort of split the middle on her response, seeming empathic while still supporting capital punishment. But the way that it was delivered was really strong, and so we want you to see that.
This is Ricky Jackson, wrongfully convicted of murder in 1975. He spent 39 years in prison. He is undecided. Ricky, what's your question?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for taking my question. As stated, I did spend 39 years of my life in prison for a crime, a murder I didn't commit. And it was only through the heroic efforts of the Ohio Innocence Project at the University of Cincinnati that I was ultimately exonerated and am able to stand before you today. Senator, I spent some of those years on death row, and excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's okay, brother.
I came perilously close to my own execution, and in light of that, what I've just shared with you, and in light of the fact that there are documented cases of innocent people who have been executed in our country, I would like to know, how can you still take your stance on the death penalty?
This is such a profoundly difficult question, and what I have said and what I continue to believe is that the states have proven themselves incapable of carrying out fair trials that give any defendant all the rights that defendant should have, all the support that the defendant's lawyer should have. And I've said I would breathe a sigh of relief if either the Supreme Court or the states themselves began to eliminate the death penalty. Where I end up is this, and maybe it's a distinction that is hard to support, but at this point, given the challenges we face from terrorist activities primarily in our country that end up under federal jurisdiction for very limited purposes, I think it can still be held in reserve for those. And the kind of crimes I'm thinking of are the bombing in Oklahoma City, where an American terrorist blew up the government building, killing, as I recall, 158 Americans, including a number of children who were in the preschool program. The plotters and the people who carried out the attacks on 9/11, but a very limited use of it in cases where there has been horrific mass killings. That's really the exception that I still am struggling with, and that would only be in the federal system. But what happened to you was a travesty, and I just can't even imagine what you went through and how terrible those days and nights must have been for all those years. And I know that all of us are so regretful that you or any person has to go through what you did. And I hope that now that you are standing here before us, that you will have whatever path in life you choose going forward, and that you will get the support you deserve to have.
I wonder, I feel like Clinton supporters listening to that will say that that was a good response because she cares about the guy, even though she still supports
everybody's supporters like their candidate's response.
Yeah, obviously.
Except for Jimmy.
Obviously, but I mean, I do think that there's a significant number of primary supporters of Hillary Clinton that don't want capital punishment. And so they still have to square that goal of getting rid of all of it with a candidate who wants it to be available. And I'm not even saying that in that question it necessitates a philosophical explanation for why you think it's necessary, but she should have to give that, I think, at some point. And I don't think that she has. In that, saying that like the guy who did Oklahoma City has to be executed, doesn't have to be executed. He could be locked up for the rest of his life. I don't understand it. And especially when you're faced by a guy who says, it's not like the people who've been locked up for a long time, or even the people who've been executed for murders that they didn't commit. That was by legislatures and by governors and by judges who think that in many cases it's necessary. And you can say it's only necessary in the case of mass murderers. There's going to be some people who are framed for mass murders that they don't kill. And once you allow it, when you don't ban it, you open the door for some states to be looser than others with it. And some states that have racial discrepancies in the application of the death penalty. And then people get swept up in that. And that's why, thankfully, he was able to get out after 39 years, that no human can actually process what that's about or what that's like. But some people will die. And she philosophically believes that at the end of the day might have to be a cost because it hasn't changed her mind. It could have changed her mind. It hasn't.
Hey.
And so whether she says it or not, she thinks that it's an acceptable cost that some innocent people will die for us to still have capital punishment.
Yes.
I don't think that she would ever say that. I don't think that she believes that. But it hasn't changed her mind. It's a cost. It's not a hypothetical one. We know that innocent people have died, and she still thinks we should have capital punishment.
And I just want to state for the record, for clear-thinking people, it is not a profoundly difficult question. Should the state be in the business of murdering people? No, that's not a profoundly difficult question. The answer is no, we shouldn't, because it doesn't do anything positive for our society. It doesn't stop murder. It doesn't make us less violent. It makes us more violent. It sends the message that violence actually is the answer, that actually might does make right, that sometimes killing people solves problems. So that's why you don't do it, for all those reasons. And it's not a profoundly difficult question. The only reason you want to murder someone, if you're a politician, is because you're pandering to people who aren't informed. The reason why you want to kill people is because you don't really care that much about doing the wrong thing if it helps you get elected. So it's not a profoundly difficult question. And that's why even Russia doesn't kill its own citizens. But we do here in the United States because we have bought politicians.
To be fair, Russia kills a lot of journalists.
They do kill a lot of journalists, to be fair.
Yeah, they get them on one end, yeah.
But to be fair, our journalists here work for the people who would be killing journalists. So why would they kill them? They work for them.
Yeah. I think that overall, and it was a perfectly serviceable evasion. I think that people will be satisfied with it. I personally was not. And not even specifically on this issue, but I like Bernie's response to things like this. Like, do you support any restrictions on a woman's right to choose? No, I do not.
You mean
well, and even in that same debate a couple of weeks ago, Hillary said, well, at certain times late in the pregnancy, as long as there's protections for the women and all that. He says no. Like on fracking, she says, well, it would be really difficult to stop it, and I support certain regulations. He said in response to, do you support fracking? He said no. And in some cases, that could be simplistic thinking for certain things. But it could represent understanding where we need to go and what actual leadership from a president could mean. Like Obama, when he came out and said there should be gay marriage, at least in certain communities, the polls changed a lot in just a couple of months on a topic that they weren't changing every couple of months on. And that represents something. And I don't think the gay marriage is so special an issue that the president couldn't lead on other issues, even if there's been durable support for certain things for a very long time.